How's it going, everyone? This is Mike, and I'm back up in my TV room for a little bit of a change of atmosphere. And I'm here to do a response to Ian's weekly film community chat, which he put up yesterday. And he had a very interesting question. It was, do we ever regret some of the films that we bought, the DVD, Blu-rays that we bought? Do we wish we hadn't bought them? And he was getting very serious about it. He thinks that he was kind of influenced by a lot of people to go into areas and genres that otherwise he would not normally have spent money on. And he mentioned Criterions, things like that. So I understand what he's saying, and I understand the whole idea that we sometimes get influenced, or so we get ideas from each other, and sometimes when we pursue those ideas, we find out we're not as interested as we thought we would be. So in a way, we might say, well, I wasted my money, I wasted my time, and I don't want this film on my shelf. So that's happened to me sometimes, but most of the time I would say no. There are only a few films that I regretted buying from Criterion, and I can only think of 3. And it wasn't because I was influenced by anybody, but it was because I thought they were going to be better than they were, and I was disappointed. So I regretted spending money, because Criterions aren't cheap, obviously. I think one of them I may have gotten used, so that wasn't quite as expensive. But so those 3 films, which I mentioned before, I believe, in other videos: the Richard Linklater film Dazed and Confused, the David Cronenberg film Naked Lunch, which I admit I didn't even make it through the first half hour. Sorry, Cronenberg fans, I just could not get into it at all, couldn't connect with it. And the other film is the movie Thief, starring James Caan and Tuesday Weld, which I really had high hopes for, and couldn't get into it. So I gave all those away. I didn't even bother to try to sell them. It's too much trouble. So just gave them away and was very happy to do that. So hopefully other people have them now. Well, 2 of them I think I gave to my friend Dave Koenig, and I think he liked both of them. So I'm happy that I gave them to somebody who would like them. As far as other regrets, okay, well, I picked this one out just as an example. This is not a regret, but I seriously doubt that I will ever go through this again. D.W. Griffith's classic, The Birth of a Nation. I'm very glad that I have this, because it's a landmark film. It's very important in the history of the cinema, and I was always curious about it. So I picked it up, Kino Video, very nice little package here. I don't think I'll ever watch this again, but I'm very happy to have this on my shelf to refer to, and just as it would be a library book. I've said that many times, that the things I collect on DVD and Blu-ray, box sets and all that, to me it's like having a shelf of library books. And even if I never watch them again, just like books that I would never read again, I have no intention of getting rid of them. This is valuable to me, even though it's very offensive because of the content, but it's also very important. So no regrets, but it's kind of something that I would never bother to watch again. I regret buying this stupid thing, which I picked up at Big Lots for maybe $3, and I thought it would be hilariously funny. It wasn't, and I didn't get through this either. It was really terrible. So if anybody wants to trade for this, let me know what you've got. Let me see. Now, some things, I get inspired to buy certain things. For example, Ingmar Bergman. Now, Wolfgratz, in his response to Ian's video, he talked about, he says some very funny things about watching Bergman films and Pasolini. Yeah, talk, Mike. Let's see. Now, I got very inspired by a Bergman film that I bought, I think last year, from a Criterion sale. It's called Wild Strawberries, and I loved it so much that when another sale came up on Movies Unlimited, it was a 40% off sale for Criterions, I sent for this. This is 4 films by Bergman. We have, well, no, one is a documentary called Ingmar Bergman Makes a Movie. Then we have The Silence, Winter Light, and Through a Glass Darkly, none of which I've ever seen, but I thought I really wanted to get into more Bergman. By the way, I hate that cover. I don't care if it is just a drawing of a spider. I hate it. I'm thinking about pitching this set box here and just keeping the movies. Anyway, Have I watched any of these? No, not a single one. But I don't regret buying them because I know that someday I'm going to get the spirit and start watching Bergman. You know, maybe for an entire long weekend or something. I have another Bergman box set that I've had for years and years and years. What am I turning it like that for? This has Persona, The Serpent and the Egg, The Passion of Anna, Shame, and Hour of the Wolf, none of which I've ever seen, but I'm very happy to have this, so no regrets there. I do regret sometimes that I don't pay close enough attention to what I already have in my collection, and then on one of those late night buying binges, like 2:30 in the morning when I should be in bed and I'm online and I'm looking for things to buy, I end up buying copies of things I already have. For example, I did not need to have 2 copies of Motorcycle Gang, nor did I need 2 copies of Swamp Women, directed by Roger Corman, by the way, I think. Yeah, I think it is. Both terrible prints, by the way, almost completely unwatchable. Nor did I need 2 copies of Samson and the Vampire Women, okay, or 2 copies of Scared Stiff, starring Jack Haley and Ann Savage. So, yeah, and another thing, sometimes I get inspired to buy something, or maybe a whole collection of movies, when there's a sale going on, which I did last week. I recently got into the sort of the Poverty Row films and started buying some collections from Sinister Cinema, things that are really obscure, from studios like Monogram and PRC, Mascot Pictures, and I've really been finding a lot of very cool things from the 1930s and 1940s that were just great fun to watch. And there's an actor in a lot of those films who was not a well-known name. Probably a lot of you have no idea who this guy is. An actor named Frankie Darro. He was a child actor back in the 20s, silent days, made it into the 30s and the 40s. He was a very short guy. He was only 5'3", and he was playing teenagers when he was well into his 20s because of his size. But he was a very cool actor, made a lot of films. So I got online one night with... I should say on Oldies.com, because they have this sale going on several times a year where you can buy 10 movies for $39.95. We'll round that off to $40. And I ended up buying 10 Frankie Darro movies, right? So I was very happy with these when I got these, but have I watched any of them? Not a single one. Now I will. It's just that sometimes my interests, this sort of ebb and flow, and there are things that I'm sort of constantly weeding through my collection and saying, well, I really don't need to keep this. I need the space. I'd rather pass these on to somebody else, or my interests have just changed and I don't think I'll ever watch this again. But for the most part, no, I don't have any deep regrets. And I think that when it comes to being influenced by people, I am influenced quite a bit, most of the time in a very positive way. But Ian brought up the samurai films, things like Seven Samurai and Rashomon, directed by Kurosawa. I acknowledge that all these films are classics because everybody in the universe thinks of them that way. And practically everybody that I interact with on YouTube has talked positively about these films. And I've been curious about them many times, but there's just something inside of me that knows I'm not going to be a big fan of samurai films. So I always pass these movies up. Whenever there's a Criterion sale, I just don't start grabbing, Kurosawa films. And maybe someday I will, but I don't. I just sort of feel like this is not an area I want to go into. Just like some of the hardcore action films is not necessarily my arena, so I don't want to spend my money there, at least not now. Now, if I go to some sale someplace and I find Seven Samurai on sale for a few bucks, I might pick it up and give it a chance, and maybe I'll find a whole new genre that I fall in love with. But I sort of have a built-in knowledge of what I'm going to like and what I don't like. For example, I'm always babbling about the teenage juvenile delinquent films that I love and nobody else seems to care about, which is perfectly fine. But yeah, so I think everybody is able to resist those in the same way that I can resist Kurosawa. I guess that's all I want to say. I don't have a lot of regrets about what I buy and what I have on the shelves, and I actually am very happy with my collection. It was funny. One thing I want to bring up, a couple of videos ago, I made the statement that I thought I was actually done collecting horror movies because I had pretty much everything that I wanted. Well, never say never, because I've been realizing lately that that was premature. So I'm not done buying horror movies. So, okay, it's enough babbling on my part. Thank you for listening. Comments are welcome.